I believe that Blue Engine's team teaching model would be a good fit for me because I've had great experience teaching others in small groups. Whether it be teaching younger people how to windsurf or giving incarcerated people feedback on their writing, I've always found that it's best to do so in a small group, as this setting allows me to really get to know each student, their strengths and weaknesses, and their learning strategies. In the future, I hope to become a full-time lead teacher, so I see the beta experience as an opportunity to gain new teaching skills, such as tutoring, communicating with parents, identifying students' skills and weaknesses, and basically learning how to help each student thrive, regardless of whatever the conditions may be. In order to determine the extent to which I was successful after a year of teaching with Blue Engine, I would mainly focus on evaluating the improvements in my students from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. First, I would do so by examining test scores and scores on homework assignments from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. This would allow me to determine which concepts they had and had not understood. Additionally, I would look inside myself to kind of gauge whether or not students had really enjoyed working with me, and hopefully they did. And if they did like working with me, that would be a good thing. And also I would look to see whether or not students' performance within each group setting had improved from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Lastly, I would look to get feedback from other educators and students. And if I find that the feedback is positive, that students did improve in the group settings and on test scores and homework assignments, I'll feel that I've been successful. One of the more challenging experiences I've had came at the beginning of an internship this summer. Pretty much the first day I started work, I went to my supervisor and I told her that I had all of these ideas on how we could raise money for the organization. And pretty much immediately after I told her those ideas, she said that we would not be pursuing them and that I needed to follow a set of orders. And I agreed. And although I was a little bit upset at first because I felt like I wasn't really being challenged, and that, as a student, I was taught to think kind of independently and creatively, and I wasn't able to do so. But pretty soon I was able to put myself in her shoes, and I realized that she did have a lot more experience than I did, and that it would be best for me to listen to what she was saying and to follow her orders directly. And from this experience, I really learned that it is important to introduce creative ideas to innovate within an organization, but it is probably best to do so after a few months and after developing a track record of success, so that people trust you and are willing to really implement what you have to offer. The first time I read The New Jim Crow, I was in 12th grade. And what struck me then, and what still struck me now when I reread the introduction, was this notion that essentially from the beginning of our country to now, the governmental bodies have looked to achieve the same ends, but have done so through different means. So she makes a comparison between Jim Crow and a colorblind era of mass incarceration. And to me, that it made me pause, because we've always been taught that a lot of racial progress has happened in the United States, and she was really challenging that fairly dominant ideology, way of viewing racial progress in the United States. And to me, I'm very interested in looking at social data to evaluate the improvements or lack thereof among different racial groups' successes, whether that be the percentage of the group that's able to vote, the distribution of educational attainment along different percentiles, the distribution of income, the incarceration rates, the life expectancies, health coverage rates, and basically looking at a lot of different longitudinal measures of success or happiness among different racial groups. I think one would be able to get a firm understanding of racial progress in the United States, and with very close examination of the data, begin to draw causal inferences for the trends that are shown in those data sets.